Sanguine Berzerkers are a loyalist successor chapter created from the lineage of Sanguinius and his noble blood angels. An ancient and laudable chapter, the Sanguine Berzerkers claim to be one of several chapters created during the second founding in 021 M31, following the successful conclusion of the Great Scouring. However, due to the paucity of records, human error, and the passage of time, these claims cannot be accurately verified. Following their inception, the Sanguine Berzerkers quickly established themselves as a bellicose and savage chapter, forever prosecuting their never-ending war against the enemies of mankind. But the Sanguine Berzerkers have also garnered a reputation as one of the most savage chapters of Blood Angel's lineage, for like their progenitors, the chapter has a penchant for close-quarters combat and makes heavy use of assault units within their chapter formations. In battle, the Sanguine Berzerkers revel in releasing their uncontrolled savagery against their foes, craving the feeling of hot blood on their skin and splattering across their armor. Though they are tireless protectors of mankind, having garnered significant victories throughout Imperial history, their reputation is such that most Imperial commanders will only accept the chapter's aid in the direst of circumstances. Following the closing days of the Horus Heresy and the subsequent War of Reciprocity, known as the Great Scouring, the Blood Angels Legion, like all their fellow loyalist first founding legions, were split into many smaller, separate chapters. According to the historical accounts of the Sanguine Berzerkers, they were initially formed from a company of the Blood Angels that had borne a more bloodthirsty mien than their fellow brethren. Their captain was named Ymir, known by his given nickname, the Mighty, who led his brothers to many victories throughout the Great Crusade. They were typically the first in the fight, fighting without fear, thus giving them the nickname the Berzerkers. The Berzerkers pulled victory out of the jaws of defeat for the Blood Angels on many occasions, though they often sustained very high casualty rates. After the heresy and the splitting of the legions, Ymir took his newly formed chapter and went out in search for a home. After a decade of searching, the Sanguine Berzerkers found the world of Drengheim in the Ultima Segmentum. Drengheim was a feudal world reminiscent of Terra's Dark Ages. The society of the world was similar to that of the ancient Scandians from Terra and quickly bowed to the Astartes as they landed on the planet. They claimed Drengheim as their new chapter homeworld and built their mighty fortress ministry, the Bloody Fortress. The Sanguine Berzerkers have always sent battle companies to help with any major Imperial crusade, most notably sending several companies to battle in the Second and Third War of Armageddon, along with the most recent Black Crusades. Notable campaigns: the Great Crusade, various dates, M31. The Horus Heresy, from 005 to 014 M31. Hellion Purgation, from 012 to 014 M35. In the wake of the anarchy that followed the murderous internecine conflict of the War of the False Primarch and its aftermath, the Hellion sector declared its secession from the troubled Imperium in 870 M33. Bloodily attacking its neighbors, it became quickly apparent that the sector's rulers had fallen then to the worship of chaos, and its millions of men under arms were corrupted and given over to darkness, while its mass manufactura were turned to churning forth twisted war machines consecrated to the dark gods. The ever-widening war swelled to ravage more than 80 inhabited systems, and uncounted billions died in the fighting. By the dawning of M35, the Hellion sector and its environs were reduced to little more than a waste zone of barren worlds and dead hive cities. Unwilling to let the ruinous powers maintain rule over an Imperial sector, the High Lords of Terra immediately called for an Imperial crusade to be launched to retake the chaos-held region. Several bellicose and bloody-handed scions of Sanguinius chapters, including the Sanguine Berzerkers, Blood Scorpions, Charnel Brethren, Crimson Raptors, and Golden Seraphs, eagerly joined the massive Imperial flotilla that was making its way towards the Hellion sector to bring the Emperor's divine wrath against the heretic forces of the Dark Gods. The chapters of the Blood launched themselves wholeheartedly into Fallen Sector, declaring a day of revelation in which the scions of Sanguinius were unleashed against the followers of Chaos. Many of the Chaos warbands and demonic legions confronted by the massive host, comprised of the most savage of Sanguinius get, were overcome with dread and awe as the savage fury and blinding destruction delivered upon them by these chapters of the Blood were near apocalyptic in scale. Despite the large numbers of the demonic legions and formidable Chaos warbands arrayed against them, these ferocious Astartes delivered the great angel's wrath upon one benighted world after another. Extant records indicate that no few worlds still speak in awe of when the angels fell from the skies to free them from the oppression of their demonic overlords. Within a span of 2 years, the chapters of the Blood brought salvation to the once benighted worlds of the Hellion sector and fully purged the taint of chaos from this region of the galaxy. Alari's Blood Crusade, 031 M33. When a massive blood crusade comprised of an exceptionally large and brutal warhost comprised of several World Eaters warbands and blood cultist followers invades the Hadronian Wall subsector of the Alaris sector, located adjacent to the Cadian sector, the entire Sanguine Berzerkers chapter takes up arms against these renegade forces. They are a part of a joint imperial crusade comprised of several bellicose Scions of Sanguinius chapters, including the Bloodbearers, Children of Seth, Crimson Sentinels, and the Golden Seraphs. Those worlds that had fallen beneath the bloody shadow of the Blood God's followers were reserved the greatest measure of the chapters of the Blood, who granted them no quarter and no mercy. The full role taken by this independent Astartes battle group is impossible to collate. Nevertheless, the fragmented accounts of the various battles that took place in the Hadronian Wall subsector are extant in the scattered records of the era. Some list no more than a chapter's name and where they were cited during this conflict, while other records offer a glimpse into the many savage wars fought between both sides, as several independent imperial strike forces often fought the savage corn-worshipping warbands to near mutual annihilation. Though the subsector was eventually cleared of the foul presence of chaos, the destruction wrought by those dedicated to the Blood God's service and the Scions of Sanguinius affected the infrastructure of several of these worlds, some of which are still struggling to rebuild to this day. 13th Black Crusade, 999 M41. The Sanguine Berzerkers sent 400 Marines to defend Cadia. Ultima Crusade, from 000 to 112 M42. Chapter Homeworld. Located in the Ultima Segmentum, Drengheim is a feudal world and is reminiscent of ancient Scandia. The planet has only 3 continents named Jotunheim, Svartalfheim and Midgard. Midgard. This is the middle continent of the planet. The people of the continent are strong and fierce and constantly raid the people of Svartalfheim and only rarely raid the people of Jotunheim. Svartalfheim. This is the southernmost continent and has people who are also fierce and strong, but slightly shorter of stature than those of Midgard. The people of Svartalfheim are great craftsmen and make great weapons of war, but are shy and live mostly in the mountains. Jotunheim. This is the northernmost continent and is where the Sanguine Berzerkers Fortress Ministry is located. The people of Jotunheim are taller than most and are considered nearest to the sons of the Emperor and are considered blessed by him. The Sanguine Berzerkers are a Codex Divergent chapter due to their high numbers of Marines in the chapter. They have ranks that are reminiscent of ancient Scandian tribes, although they still have 10 battle companies and a scout company. Chapter Command. Warlord, Chapter Master equivalent. High Prester, High Chaplain equivalent. Saga Seer, Chief Librarian equivalent. Ha Lenker, Chief Apothecary equivalent. Harskapa, High Tech Marine equivalent. Command ranks. Prester, Chaplain equivalent. Seer, Librarian's equivalent. Lenker, Apothecary equivalent. Scarper, Tech Marine equivalent. Berzerker, Champion equivalent. Thane or Earl or Jarl, Captain equivalent, title based on the continent that the captain comes from. Junior ranks. Ulfskarl, Veteran equivalent. Huskarl, Sergeant equivalent. Oxwrecker, Tactical Marines equivalent. Ulfethnor, Assault Marines equivalent. Svenfelking, Devastator Marines equivalent. Vaidi, Scout Marines equivalent. Specialist formations. Einherjar. The Einherjar are the elite first company and are considered the greatest warriors of the entire chapter. They have a near legendary status in the chapter, half are equipped with Terminator warplate and the others wear regular warplate. For a Marine to earn this status, he must serve for at least 2 centuries or have fought and distinguished himself with a heroic stand against the enemy that outnumbered him. The chapter claims descent from the Primarch Sanguinius and the Blood Angels Legion. This claim is backed up by the Marines of the chapter who possess the same savagery in battles as their genetic forebearers and typically are known to drink the blood of their enemies. Throughout the history of the chapter, they have done their required duty and handed over a portion of their gene seed to the Adeptus Mechanicus to check for purity. Unbeknownst to the chapter, the Blood Angels Lord Commanders have always stepped in to take the sample, then hand over what is to be believed to be the same sample. Sometime in M41, the Mechanicus somehow got a hold of an actual genetic sample. The chapter has a 25% chance of deficiency, which is impossible for Blood Angel stock, as it typically shows a 50% deficiency due to their twin genetic curses of the Black Rage and Red Thirst. This caused the Mechanicus and the Inquisition to begin a search in the chapter's history. The Inquisition was on the brink of declaring the chapter renegade when a Lord Inquisitor stepped forward and abruptly ended the investigation. The Lord Inquisitor met with the chapter's command and introduced himself as Lord Inquisitor Caleb. He assured the chapter command that this would never happen again, and they had a strong ally in him. The chapter bases its culture off of the people of the homeworld, which in of itself is based upon Terra's ancient Scandian culture. They prefer to use close-quarter combat and have an affinity for both power and chain axes. The title Oxwrecker translates to Axemen in the tongue of Drengheim. Many mistakenly believe Sanguine Berzerkers are descendants of the Space Wolves, being as both chapters' cultures are very similar. The first generation of the Sanguine Berzerkers was extremely different from the generations that would follow. The first generation was extremely violent both on and off the battlefield. They suffered from immense headaches, bleeding from the nose and ears, including facial and body twitches when outside of battle. In battle, they were unstoppable and fully bloodthirsty, throwing caution in the wind. The first generation fully died out a full 2 centuries after the Horus Heresy. The last member of the first generation was the first chief librarian, Loken. Loken and the original librarians didn't share the same traits as their brothers, and it seemed the librarians' presence made the brothers of the Sanguine Berzerkers uncomfortable, and thus would give the librarians of the chapter a wide berth. The generations that followed the first were different, being that the bleeding from the ears, nose and headaches, and the twitching stopped. The fury of battle is still strong in the current generations and is what the chapter is usually known for. The chapter has many different beliefs, but only a few are known to the rest of the Imperium at large. One such belief is that they view the Emperor as a god. The chapter has a weird belief of not wanting their eyes drawn in a picture or painting, or even seen in a pict. Therefore, the chapter will have cloth hoods as part of their war gear so that they can hide their eyes when not wearing helms. The Sanguine Berzerkers' true history has been hidden from the majority of the chapter and the Imperium at large. This had to do with the chapter's origin, as the Black Rage and Red Thirst didn't seem to affect the chapter as much as their fellow Scions of Sanguinius, or as often. After the Sanguine discovery, Lord Inquisitor Caleb decided to have a genetic sample of the Berzerkers tested by his own retinue. After testing, they discovered that the gene seed of the Sanguine Berzerkers is not from a single strain but was, in fact, chimeric. Throughout the history of the chapter command has kept the true history secret from all outsiders as well as their own. Only the Warlord, High Prester, Sargasir, Harlanker and the Harskappa know the chapter's true origins, and when a new member is inducted into chapter command, the others inform the new member of the chapter's secret history. No one outside of chapter command is in total knowledge of the Sanguine Berzerkers' true history.